Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Another Sunday, here we are. Took longer than normal for this broadcast to pop up. It was sort of hanging there, twirling in a circle. Um, Today we're talking about. Well, I titled it "The Awakening," and I guess really what I had in mind was an overall view of the unfolding, the natural unfolding of a person's life from beginning to the end. It's a grand story. It's a book. It's the book, the story of you. Now, I might be influenced by the fact that I'm writing sort of my memoirs. I'm writing The Crazy, Insane Life of Dr. Jeff. And I began that project for my son, Shay, and, grandchildren and those who come after me. There is no such sort of thing for most of us in our with our ancestors or with our fathers or our grandfathers or our great grandfathers. There's no document we can read to find out what their life was like. And everyone's life is a unimaginably precious story, unique in the universe, never to be repeated again. Sort of like a Tibetan Buddhist sand painting. There's giant sand mandalas in many colors where they tap the different colored sand and make this elaborate mandala, and as soon as it's done, they sweep the floor with a broom. So the concept of paying attention to where you are in your story, in the book of your life, is an important thing to do. It's a matter of conscious perspective. Buried inside that story is a story that I've spent a lot of my life contemplating. Because when I was studying the esoteric secrets from the East and delving into exploring exotic things from other parts of the world, the concept of acupuncture and chi energy flowing through your body, the concept of chakras, these vortex energy fields that are etheric and where the metaphysical world penetrates into the physical world, and that there are physical structures in the body that synapse with the chakras. I'm talking about the glands, all the glands. Every gland has a chakra, and every gland is supplied by, nerves coming out of the spinal cord that go into the sympathetic chain, that go into postganglionic neurons, and on and on and on. That there are exotic structures in how the brain functions and how the brain is hardwired into the emotional centers, and all of that is hardwired into the autonomic nervous system, which means that emotions have direct access to organ gland function. The studies of meditation and the studies of higher states of consciousness, and the deep study of the organized development of the fetus in the womb, birth, and the various stages that all of us go through until we reach old age and pass away. as I was studying the anatomy and physiology and the esoteric sciences and all the rest of it, something began to gel out of that for me. And what that was had to do with looking out on the world that we currently have, that we have currently created, our man-made world that we have created. A highly strange and artificial world that is divorced from nature. And I did a study at one point to try to find out, where did that division start in the grand story of humanity as a whole, in the book of life of the phases of humanity? Because in the past, it all had to do with family and tribe and community and a deep symbiosis with nature and the earth and other living forms, whatever they took. There was a sacred reverence there. The community was structured in an organic way that arose out of life itself. Natural evolution of a symbiosis in a tribe and in a community in relation to life around it on the planet. There were elders, there were shaman, there were structured phases that were well recognized of the arising, of the flowering, of the opening of your life as you went through childhood and adolescence and adulthood and old age. There were epochs. There was the rites of passage when adolescence, when the first flowering of sexualized hormones begin to flood your body, and hair starts to grow in private places, and women have their first period, and men have to go through the rite of passage of manhood. There was a place where the things of being a boy now have to be sloughed off, and you have to go through a rite of passage with the men in your village and the elders and the shaman to put you on your vision quest. And the same counterpart of that would happen with the women's community and the girls who are reaching puberty and their first period. All of these epochs in life were clearly marked and celebrated, as the community as a whole celebrated the great cosmic events that took place in the world itself. The celebrations of the equinoxes, the celebrations of the time of spring and the time of winter, and a dozen other very significant cosmic events that took place that we no longer even think about or recognize. The ancients spent a huge amount of effort to build huge monuments to the clockwork of the universe, like Stonehenge and the pyramids and structures like that, things that took a huge amount of effort that would stand for millennia and communicate into the future forever to future generations of people that we were here and we understood these things, these cosmic things about life and the universe and the procession of the equinoxes and the seasons, and we celebrated these things. And this is a monument to never forget, to be connected to the cosmos and connected to the earth and connected to one another and connected to life. These things have been lost. Some have been commandeered into a sort of a sterile scientific endeavor. The magic and the mystery in general has been lost, but not lost to individuals, like individual astronomers could have revelations, but the general tone of society is that those are the things of sort of childhood or something. They're not to be believed unless it's scientific scrutiny. You don't believe in earth spirits or, tree spirits or, the fox tribe or the ant tribe or the tree tribe, that they have a community and that they are alive and that they pursue living, and that we are all living together and that we're all symbiotically related to each other. The symbiosis has been broken. And as far as I can see, where the split took place, where humanity, in its previous understanding and symbiosis, got broken from that symbiosis from nature, with agriculture. Before agriculture, humanity was a hunter-seeker community. Human beings hunted, and they picked plants and berries and nuts, and eventually they made bread. But at some point, people figured out that you could tend plants. You could intentionally plant plants for food, and alleviate, sort of the dry times when hunting wasn't working very well. You had a sub base that you could always rely on. Once you started clearing land for agriculture, you no longer needed to hunt anymore, or hunting wasn't a primary, thing. And the nomad life of chasing the game to new hunting fields when this was hunted out, you'd move on. Those days were over. Now you stayed in place. As soon as you stayed in place, then your village got larger, because the limitation of growth of a tribe or a community would be the hunting fields that you could feed people. So it would sort of naturally keep the numbers down, and you would butt up against the hunting grounds of other species, and everybody had their place, and it was like a patchwork quilt that worked for everyone, sort of unconscious rules of nature. But once we had agriculture, human beings had an unlimited supply of food, and their numbers could start to grow. And pretty soon, our territory began to not only push the boundaries of the territory of other creatures around us, but started extending into it and taking that over and pushing them out. Until today, we have pushed virtually every species out of its hunting grounds and made thousands and thousands of species go extinct, as our ever-ending quest for chopping down rainforests and burning them for money, and drilling for oil, and all the other things that humanity does to sort of rape the planet and other life forms in the name of progress. The price to pay is the complete disassociation with our place in nature and our place in the universe. We've lost that completely, with great detriment to ourselves, to the soul of humanity. And if we don't do something to get that back, then we will die as a species. It's repeated over and over again. There's no guarantee that, that we're going to live forever on the planet, that we're somehow invulnerable. Many have come before us and thought the same thing. It's up to us to reestablish our connection and to take our reality take the steering wheel and make reality what it should be, what it could be, and return full circle back into our symbiotic relationship with life as a whole in the context of our technological world. Those things can be done. We're smart. Human beings are very intelligent. We could figure this out. We already have all the tools at our disposal to make it happen. It's the will to do. That's the difference. So in one sense, what's behind these live streams is to magnetize the collective unconscious mind of humanity with our live stream mind links, because our power of numbers can tap into the whole and create a ripple that affects other collective unconscious minds in ways that they don't suspect, to change the field of consciousness at a quantum field level, to shift the outcome of our relationship to life and reality itself, so that we come back in alignment and heal our species. So welcome to No Small Talk Sunday, as we trace out a concept of, if it hadn't gone this way, if the reality that we had created as a species had not gone the way it's going right now, but we had continued to follow and nurture our symbiotic relationship with nature and govern ourselves and our communities and our civilization based on these natural laws of nature, instead of deviating along and making up our own rules and leave nature behind, then what would it look like? Because there's a program inside your DNA that makes this whole thing happen. That you're a baby, you grow up, you go through different stages. What would it be like if we had that kind of world? Which brings us to sort of the basic concept of the natural, organic process of the awakening process of humanity and each person in it, as a natural unfolding of a program that's deeply built into our DNA that would naturally unfold your life into the correct sequence of events that is already built into the book of orders inside your DNA. So I've discussed this in the past, that in the beginning, in our sort of pre-birth life, or there is a preconception life where we're homogeneous with the continuum. We're a drop that's in the ocean, and that drop in the ocean is about to separate out from the ocean and become a drop all of its own. So we arise from this void, and the drop separates its dropness out of the ocean and becomes a drop of its own, with the ocean implied within it. And this period of time is sort of a very cosmic experience of sperm and egg coming together and cells dividing according to some plan. And this unfolding and an exponential growth of these cells as they continue to divide. And all of a sudden, what begins to emerge out of those divisions is shape and form. And within that shape and form are or levels of shapes and forms within forms within forms within forms that form all the structures and the muscles and the organs and the glands and the brain, all growing from some cosmic blueprint. At a certain stage, it's very difficult to tell fetuses from each other in different species. So at a certain point, we're all the same. We all go through our own evolutionary process where we all look exactly the same until a certain point where you can start to begin to differentiate what they look like of different species, shift and change in that process. But far enough back, they're all the same. They all look pretty much the same. But the cosmic experience of the blueprint being read and the cells dividing and forming all the structures that you are is just pretty difficult to wrap your brain around. This happened to each one of us. Each one of us went through this cosmic process. Our pre-birth period in the womb is the first epoch, the first period of the unfolding. Is the unfolding of pure potential. Yes, we all have our inborn talents buried in our DNA. That's going to be influenced by our experiences for 9 months in the womb. And as we've said before, at 16 to 24 weeks, when the brain development happens to a certain point, all the 5 senses come online, and you're in the dark, and your nose and mouth are filled with fluid, so those aren't working. But hearing and vibration sense is the only thing we experience for that first 9 months. We're baptized as water beings floating in a sea of vibration. Parents on the outside can control, to some extent, what kind of vibrations will come into the womb, right? You could play music and Beethoven and Brahms and the Beatles and talk and sing and play guitar and enrich that environment. Experiments have already shown that rats brought up in an enriched environment have 30% higher IQ, way more healthy, and very fit. And impoverished environments are sickly and stupid. So we could theoretically increase by 30% a baby's IQ and its level of health just by playing sound waves into the womb, because it's the only way to enrich that environment, because only sound and vibration is the thing that you're experiencing. So this magical period of the growth phase, as I grow myself into a being that can survive on its own, eventually, gets to a point where the abdominal wall is stretched to a point where light does begin to filter in. So that tracks with, in the beginning was the word, the sound, the vibration, and then there was light. No surprise there. Most people don't realize how important the placenta is. Remember, I was in practice for 40 years, and one of my main practices was women and pregnancy and birth and menstruation and problems with menstruation, problem with getting pregnant, problem with miscarriages. I was a specialist there. 30% of all the blood in the baby when it's first born is in the placenta still. The placenta is a magical thing. It's doing all kinds of duties that nobody ever gave it, credit for. But now we know the placenta activates a certain low-level immune response to protect the baby. Even if there's no infection present, it just turns it on. Usually, the immune system only turns on in the presence of an attack. But this is part of the DNA programming, that this placenta is doing very specific things in relationship to the baby. And then when this baby is born, the placenta is still inside the mother's body. It's still connected to the baby. And like I said, 30% of all the blood is still in the placenta. So you have to allow that blood to drain back into the baby's body, and it takes about 15 minutes or 20 minutes. You don't just snip that cord as soon as the baby comes out. The modern medical system doesn't have a clue. They cut it right away. And that's, my first near-death experience was when I was born. I almost died of anemia. Now I know why, because they cut the cord as soon as I came out, and 30% of my blood was missing. Not only that, but it's the immune factors that have to drain back into your body. It's important. It's populating, it's charging up your immune system. It's vitamin K is coming in. So when you cut the cord too soon, the baby's anemic, and it starts to get jaundice because you haven't flooded the blood back in with, important factors that charge the liver and charge the immune system, vitamin K, clotting factors. They want to give your baby a shot of vitamin K because they rob the baby's ability to get the vitamin K from the placenta. Human females, or the female of any species, is the cosmic doorway. And therefore, every culture on Earth, every ancient culture on Earth, all the indigenous people have a special reverence for the female, the goddess, the doorway, cosmic doorway of birth and nurturing. Men cannot understand this experience. You can read about it, you can think about it, you can try to grasp it, but as a visceral experience, it's not possible. This is a unique blessing to women and the sacred feminine. So the second great phase is birth, the birthing process, both for the baby and the mother and the father. But, while you're still in the womb, you could be anything. That's why the first epic is called potential. You have the potential to be anything. You could be a mathematician, you could be Einstein, you could be a Beethoven. But one thing is for sure, you are a unique new thing in the universe that has never been here before and will never be again. You represent an extreme example of something that has never been here before. And so once a baby has been born, the reason it's associated with the title hope is because there is all the hope of the mother and father for this child to be everything they could possibly be, and hopefully with no problems. You know better than that, though. The importance of skin-to-skin touching can't be overstated. Study after study after study has been done that shows psychological detriment and health deficits to children who don't get this critical phase of activation of the largest sense organ of your body, the skin. The vibration sense network is of extreme importance and is probably the unsung hero of physiology. So it's the reason why I developed a sound table and a sound chair in a very specific configuration that I have a patent on to activate the vibration sense network in part of a sound vibrational therapy approach. Activating this system is of supreme importance. All kinds of amazing benefits happen because the vibration tracks up the posterior spinal cord, activate all the areas of the brainstem, the cerebellum, the substantia nigra, and up into the thalamus and the cortex. It activates this entire network, floods it with streaming energy, opens all those pathways. It's a cosmic, mind-boggling, huge, gigantic, unbelievable event. And each one of us has been through it. There was a time when the contractions pushed you out. You got squeezed through a canal. And when you came out the other side, you took your first breath and activated the cranial sacral pump. Cerebral spinal fluid started flooding your brain. Cerebral spinal fluid is an electrolyte. All of a sudden, all of your brain cortex processes were magnified by 100 times. Because now the electrical tissue of your neurons are floating in a fresh bath of electrolytic solution. And its solution is being pumped up and down your spinal cord with the cranial sacral pump. And your crown chakra is wide open. All your chakras are wide open. Free communication. As a matter of fact, your skull is open at the top of your skull. And the top of your skull is not even closed yet. The door is open. Everything that you experience at that moment with all of your senses is 100% brand new. What an experience that must be. Seeing for the first time in your life, smelling for the first time in your life, touching something in the first time of your life, hearing the first time in your life, mind-blowing. It's like, wow. I mean, look at that face. I mean, that's still inside each one of us. That person is still you, still down there. But in, the infancy phase, referred to as vitality, kids have boundless energy, never stops. Age 0 to 3, infant is vibrant, unlimited sources of energy. It's like an inner dynamo. I call it 500 pounds of jet fuel in a 10-pound bag, But there is raw psychic power. There's raw power here. There's never-ending new experience here. It's in a phase of extreme exploration and vitality and grokking the world. Also in this phase, the world comes into your mouth. Everything goes in the mouth. You're tasting everything. You're eating the world. Part of this is a plan. Kids are out there eating grass and eating dirt and on the beach eating sand, picking stuff off the floor and putting it in their mouth. We're freaking out because, you can't pick stuff off the floor. It's dirty. Yeah, but it's not diseased. Part of this plan is to populate the biome, populate your gut, get as much of the world inside your body as possible so your body can analyze it and chemically copy things and put things in their places and get your inside world and your outside world familiar with each other at a biochemical level. But children, above and beyond everything else, have their heart chakra open, and they're following their heart. As I've discussed before in other live streams, your life is a path that we're fated to walk, the path to a great heroic journey to find out the meaning of my soul, of my life, of why I'm here. And it always comes to a fork, and I have to make a free will decision. And the right fork is tugging my heart. My heart tells me to go that way. That's where I should go. And at a certain point in my life, I started to get worried about how am I going to make my life work that way. I really should start thinking about the path of safety and a job and a paycheck. But up until that point, in infancy, there's only a right path. I mean, it's just free flow, right path, right path. Follow the heart, do whatever, explore everything, eat the world. There's no concept of a left path, of safety. That's not there yet. It's pure, unadulterated, magical exploration of following your heart, exploring the world, finding out where you are, what this world is. So, this age of 3 to 6, of early sort of childhood, where your whole life is filled with play. Play is a cool word. I mean, it's purposeless exploration of everything and the depth of everything. You want to twirl and swirl around until you fall down, until you get dizzy and fall. You want to stand on your head. You want to run as fast as you can run. You want to climb a tree. You want to explore anything and everything. Boundless energy to do it all, and to do it all day long, without stopping. We grow up more and more, and between 6 and 8, that's sort of middle childhood. We're making friends. We've got pals. We form Goonie squads. In my day, my mom would shoo me out of the house in the morning, and I would play with my friends all day long. We'd ride bicycles, we'd play cowboys and Indians, we'd be in outer space, we would be under the sea, we would be climbing trees and running through the grass and exploring hills and valleys and never see a house. We were in a magical story that was being superimposed on reality through our imagination. That when I was playing cowboys and Indians, I had a gun and a holster and a cowboy hat. But when me and my buddies were riding across the plains on our horses, we were doing this sort of action, and the horse was real. We were on a horse. Anybody from the outside would look at us, we're not on horses, we're doing a galloping thing. But inside our minds, we were in the Old West. The whole thing was fleshed out. It was a period of time where imagination pathways are being grown in the brain, because it's a survival tool you're going to need later. You're going to need to have your imagination. It's a tool that you're growing right now. And unfortunately, that tool is being decimated by too early use of computers and cell phones. Because now we do not, we've got a infinite kind of reflection thing going on here. Cool, eh? See that? So imagination is critical. It's the kind of thing that comes from reading books. This is the period of reading books, allowing the words on a page to paint movies and pictures in your mind, right? You are the one who dreams up what Gandalf looks like and what Frodo looks like. As soon as somebody else takes that imagination and puts it on a screen in a movie, and you're passive now, and you watch what somebody else came up with of what Gandalf looks like, you don't have to use your own imagination. You're not burning those pathways. Those pathways are not getting burned. We are destroying generations of children by not having that process take place. And the disastrous effect that this is going to have, we won't know yet, because those generations are going to grow up and, take charge of the world. They're going to be the CEOs. They're going to run the companies. They're going to run the country with no imagination, spoon-fed, passive. It's like not good at all. It's like terrible. It's like it's creating brain deficits. It's leading to future depressions and inability to cope. Don't get me started. At age 7, someplace in here between 6 and 8, someplace in this period of time, around age 7, is the very first time that you look in the mirror and realize that you are looking out of your own eyes. The first moment of self-awareness. Oh, I'm here. There's me in this picture. I'm not just somebody experiencing a whole bunch of stuff that happens to me and having fun doing that and playing with my friends and doing this and that. All of a sudden something stops and I realize that I'm looking out of my own eyes, witnessing all of this. And who is that that's doing it? Who's the person looking out of my eyes? This is also the period of time when the first crystals begin to form in the pineal gland. Now, the pineal gland is about the size of a grain of rice. So these quartz crystals that are arising inside the pineal gland are called brain sand. But if you look through a huge microscope, you can see that they're little crystals that are growing. Now, back in my day, you could buy a crystal radio set, which was a dial with some, wire windings, and it hooked up to an actual physical crystal. And it didn't plug in, it didn't have batteries. The crystal is what drove it through the piezoelectric effect. And you could tune in all the radio stations that you could listen to, 100 radio stations. You could turn the dial and tune the crystal to pull in these radio frequencies and hear a radio station. And that's exactly what's happening with the pineal gland in your brain. It's got piezoelectric properties. It is embedded in one of the ventricles inside the brain, these 4 ventricle chambers, hollow chambers inside the brain filled with fluid, cerebral spinal fluid. Cerebral spinal fluid is manufactured inside these ventricles, and the pineal gland is in there. So the pineal gland is the only endocrine gland that secretes its melatonin hormone into the cerebral spinal fluid and not into the blood like all the rest of them. It's special. We know that it's associated with the crown chakra. The crown chakra is associated with moments of realization of myself existing. We know that the only physical property that could be measured in the 60s with people taking LSD and mushrooms was massive higher levels of melatonin in the blood. So obviously those psychedelic compounds mainline to the pineal gland, charge it up in a special way that changes the molecular structure of the melatonin. And now the melatonin is charging the whole brain and nervous system with neurochemical compounds that are very similar to DMT. And the sort of molecular compounds that you see in endorphins and in LSD and in mushrooms, psychedelic compounds is something your brain is manufacturing from hormones in the pineal gland. So it's no wonder that at a certain age, now the pineal gland is turning itself on, crystals are beginning to form, the radio is tuning a station from the universe through your crown chakra, and you have your first moment of self-awareness. Now, in the natural flow of things, this period of time was celebrated. The elders and the parents were watching for this moment. Because when that moment took place, there would be a celebration, and there would be a ceremony to make sure that it didn't get lost in the shuffle, that this became recognized as a thing that you want to water it and put Miracle Grow on it and help it to flower. Because it's the true birthright of humanity. Is what makes us unique in all of the species is our ability to comprehend our own existence and the larger existence of the universe itself, and understand the laws and the mechanisms that make all of this work and our deep connection to it. That's what makes us special. So this became a super special moment. In our own society, it's completely unrecognized. And it doesn't happen a lot for a lot of people. Some people never have this, or they have a glimpse of it and then it's gone. As Gurdjieff said, most of humanity is asleep to themselves, to their own existence, to that process of self-awareness. They're automatons responding to the things that happen to you only. They're worker drones. Wake up with an alarm clock, make babies, go to work, traffic jams, paycheck, traffic jams home, dinner, mindless crap on the television, 7 o'clock news, junk in your food. Do the same thing tomorrow for the rest of your life. Blow the steam off on the weekend, get drunk, party. That is not the life that life itself has in the blueprint for each one of us. If we were living a natural, unfolded life as the universe designed it, and not as we bastardized it by straying off that path and disconnecting ourselves from the laws of nature. The natural result of this moment is going inside and starting to try to question, who am I? This is new. What's this all about? You now look upon everything differently. Everything has shifted. Your perception of your own reality and your place in it has now arisen. There's a self-reflected quality now beginning to go on. But life goes on. The next epoch in sort of late childhood, 9 to 11 years old, is the period of ingenuity where you're exploring, and this is where the natural scientist comes forward. Children are natural scientists. They're exploring everything. You give them like a handheld microscope and set them loose on the backyard, and they're like looking at leaves and looking at grass and looking at bugs and seeing that the world is way more mind-blowing than they ever thought. Budding musicians are exploring the world of vibration and music. There's an intuitive, sort of knowledge of harmonies and music theory without even studying music theory. it's exploration in spades and the beginning of tribal friendships, deep friendships. In our distant ancestral past, it was exploring the world and building things and making bridges and figuring out how to get to the top of a tree and making your own bow and arrow and spear. Under it all, we're all the same. Whether civilization has messed us up or not, when you're this age, civilization hasn't had a chance to penetrate in and mess you up. You haven't gotten there yet. You're still pure and pristine. And if there's not too many impediments that are applied to you, then you will flower. The impediments, of course, are education, our education system, where you're taught to squash all that stuff down, sit in a chair, not look out the window and pay attention to something you don't want to do. That's hard and stupid and you can't figure it out why you want to do that. You don't want to do it. But you conform because everybody else is conforming. And if you don't conform, you're sent to the principal's office and you're punished and your parents give you a hard talk and you begin to conform. And we begin to snip this creativity off and mold you into a square cubicle something, so that eventually you'll be a good worker and not complain sitting in front of a computer screen in a cubicle 8 hours a day and being in a traffic jam on the way there and on the way back. That's not something that anybody would naturally ever want to do or do. They'd refuse. They'd fight it unless you had been molded into that through all the years of your childhood in a system that is designed to make you pay attention and be good. But it is this period of time that tribe is really starting to arise in your life. That your interaction with friend groups, and in the natural scheme of things, those groups should be exposing you to all kinds of different age groups that you get to meet. You should have deep conversations with your elders and with your parents and with aunts and uncles and people older than you and people younger than you as your age group tribe solidifies itself. And you're sort of learning how to be cool and what it means to be you, and in this kind of environment is how it used to be. Every day was a new day in every way you could think of. You never knew what was going to happen today. That's all been lost. Now we live in boxes. I've got nothing against it. My house is wonderful, but it separates me from nature. So now my connection with nature has to be something that I schedule in my schedule book to go out and do. Something on the weekend. We're going to take a trip out to nature. We're going to go on a vacation. Meantime, the rest of our life is segmented away from nature in a box, and our work life is in a box for most people. It has a deep effect on us. This has a deep effect on us. Absolutely abnormally strange, non-natural existence with electromagnetic fields and fumes and weird stuff in your food and a pace that is completely weird and strange. Our pace in nature used to be our time clock inside our bodies would time to this environment. This environment has a certain pace. And this environment has a whole completely different pace. A pace that could quickly burn you out. But you come up to speed as you grow to meet it. I had a cool experience. I mean, I bought tickets for my mother and my sister to fly out to San Diego here years ago when my mom was still alive. They hadn't been out of Farmville, Virginia for 20 years. So I visit them. I see their life. They don't see mine. They don't know what my life looks like. So I bought them plane tickets, and I had my mom and my sister come out here. I picked them up at the airport down to San Diego. It's a 40-minute ride up Route 5 to Carlsbad, where I live. And, you know, we're talking. They're in the back seat. I'm driving on the highway. And, you know, there's palm trees. The sun is shining. It's beautiful. I mean, the city is gorgeous. And I looked in the rearview mirror, and they're back there like this, hanging onto the seat, you know, and I'm going, what's going on back there? I mean, what's the problem? And I realized, oh, that's right. When you're on the highway in Virginia, every once in a while, you'll see a car. And if you go over 65 miles an hour, there's 5 cops on your ass right now giving you a ticket. So here in San Diego, I mean, you know, I'm going 80 and there's people passing me by because I'm going too slow. People are weaving in and out of traffic. It's jammed. Like there's wall-to-wall cars and they're all going 80 and people are weaving in and out. And I realized that I had just become acclimatized to that. I don't even see that anymore. But for them, it was like, oh my God, you know. So if you took somebody from the 1800s and you teleported them in the 21st century, they would probably have a stroke and a heart attack. Because the noise level and the fume level and the weird food and the pace would blow all your fuses. It was a real lesson for me. Our artificial world and the world we came from in our ancestral past. The breeze blowing, the grass swaying, birds chirping, friends laughing, incessant traffic noises, brightly colored advertisements, mobile phone notifications, other people's incessant chattering and yelling, rapid streams of movement, cars and people, construction noises, loud music, ambulances, police cars, siren. You know, it's like we don't even know what we've done to ourselves. It's like the frog in a slowly raising temperature of the boiling water. Slow adaptive change. So you don't even know what's happening to you. There's a place where these two worlds meet. And we as humanity have got the tools in our brains. We're smart. We should be able to figure this out. To bring these worlds together. And not one at the expense of the other. And it starts here, inside of you, in your own soul. So when I lived in Virginia, I lived in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I had a house in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I had to have a 4-wheel drive to get to my house, particularly in the wintertime. My backyard had deer. I'd go out in my backyard and get on a trail and be in the mountains for a day, no houses. The Skyline Drive is a huge national park that goes all the way across the crest of the Blue Ridge Mountains, all the way down into Kentucky and Tennessee. It's one of the longest national parkways in the country. You're driving along that parkway, and these vistas out on the side are mountain ranges marching off into the distance. And the oxygen level coming off the trees makes layers and layers of oxygen layers that make, they're all blue. Shades of blue marching off into the distance, sort of misty blue and darker blues. And Now you understand it's called the Blue Ridge Mountains for a reason. The oxygen levels make the mountains often in the distance look blue. Gorgeous, mind-blowing, beautiful. You're in this total natural setting that's been this way for, 150 years. The, the animals inside of roads, they don't even run away anymore. There's deer. They don't even move. At a certain point, I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled off the road onto the side of the road and got out just to soak this in, the beauty of where I was. And I had this massive revelation. Sort of sounds funny now that you sort of say it, but I realized that the beauty of nature was not on the side of the road, that the road was cut through the nature that was already there. Doesn't seem like a big point, but it's huge. It's the big reframing of how you look at things, that nature's here first. The deer are wandering through the forest and they see this road that they walk across. The road's cut through their home. They're not on the side of any road. And right on the heels of that revelation was, oh my God, I mean, who I think I am is my road cut through my nature, my raw nature that's trying to express itself in the world. I have a personality that has formed from this weird world that I'm part of and how it's molded me to think of who I am and to sort of prevent me from having experiences of myself existing through incessant distractions and noises and advertisements and all the rest. Who I think I am is an artificial construction. It's not me. It's my road cut through me. It's my asphalt. And in psychedelic experiences and high states of meditation experiences, enlightenment experiences, you get to see that. This melts away. And who's real? The ancient one with all the answers inside of each of us arises. Adolescence, age 12 to 20. This is when you become passionate, because in here is the rise of hormones and puberty and all the rest of that, where we start to try to figure out the greatest mystery of nature of all, why the universe divided into male and female halves. And what is that all about? How do I surf those waters? Indigenous cultures have long understood the importance of rites of passage. The common theme that emerges from these practices is the realization that sooner or later the child must grow up. So as I discussed before, there were ceremonies in place watching for that moment, watching for the moment of the first period, watching for the male sexuality to turn on. And that was the ceremony of, you are no longer a child. You are entering into manhood now, and that requires a ceremony. The ceremony for a man always had to do with facing the fear of death, the fear of personal harm. You had to overcome. You had to go and hunt something by yourself with nobody around. Nobody to save you if your arrow breaks or misses. The women had a whole different experience, being segmented apart with the women and the shaman and the elders to understand the magnificent beauty of the female as the doorway. It's also the time of dreams, daydreaming about your place in the world and what you're going to do and what you want to be. It's a very tough time in the present world, in the confines of, sort of junior high and later high school. learning the ropes of social interaction and sexuality and all the rest of it. It's a very, very tough period for most. But someplace in there, if the flowering that we talked about was not suppressed or not just glossed over, but was attended to and celebrated and fostered, that first moment you look in the mirror and you say, oh, I'm here, you fostered that, then that helps you in this period of time to spread your wings and get really familiar with the core of yourself so that you aren't swayed by other people's opinions of what you're supposed to look like or how you're supposed to walk or what kind of clothes you're supposed to wear to be cool. Coolness comes from the inside. You get solidified in your own sense of self from the inside out as a sovereign being in the universe, then you are cool. It surpasses everything. You're not buffeted by those winds any longer. And that ushers you into your early adulthood, where you now start to consider, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to make a living? What do I want my life to look like? And so when the flowering is correct, done correctly, that is the age of enterprise, where you start figuring it out. You start getting your act together. You start getting in touch with your inborn talents that you could use to make a living with, that would also make you happy at the same time. In the present world, this is glossed over. It's not paid attention to. You're expected to know exactly what you're going to do by the time you graduate from high school at 18 years old and apply to college, and there's a formula. You have to go to college. I mean, this whole concept of learning a trade, being a carpenter or a plumber or a machinist, or those kind of things are frowned upon because that's blue collar work. Plumbers make a huge living, and so do electricians, and so do carpenters. But you're using your body, so it's sort of looked down upon. Our present society, you're supposed to use your brain to make your money. So this is the period of time where I find who I am and my talents, and I start to use those talents to assemble a life for myself, explore what that life is going to be. It's also the period of introspection. In some cases, it's a depression time. You don't want to step out of the cloistered existence you've had your whole life up to this point. You're now expected to go off on the great path of life on your own. No parental support any longer. It's you and the world. It's a very sobering period. It's the big period when I start considering taking the left fork of safety instead of the right fork of following my soul. And for many people, that is where disease begins. That's where the sickness of the soul starts. I've abandoned the path of my heart, the path of the journey to find out the meaning of my life and why I'm here. And I get a job instead for a paycheck. Count your age by friends, not years. Count your life by smiles, not tears. Introspection, getting in touch with yourself. This is the age of where the shamanic journey begins. Your own personal journey of the soul. And in the natural flow of the unflowering, this should be where all this starts, where parallel paths of how I am in life and what I'm doing in my life feeds that inner soul part of me, and therefore feeds everybody I know. I get to know my deepest inner self, and what I get as knowledge from down there is what I'm here for and what I'm here to do. What are my talents? What could I take and make use of and build something to make a living in my life and a way in the world? It's the template of the cosmic journey that I'm on. Greatest journey of all kind. You know, it's like it's the great heroic journey of all time. And the next phase is the midlife phase, 35 to 50, where that contemplation in some cases goes astray. I try to recapture my youth. There comes a point in my life where I realize for the first time that the number of years before me is equal to the number of years behind me. And from that point on, the number of years ahead of me is less than the number of years I've had behind me. That's a pretty sobering thing. And many people go through a midlife crisis because of that. And try to run away from and reject that idea. It's a difficult period of time to reconcile, but made less difficult if you have this strong foundation that you have been building up in spirit, which is ageless, which sees, in the context of my whole life, the big picture of what this is all about, and less years ahead than those behind has no meaning, because time is an illusion, and really your life is made up of moments of experience. The more you pay attention to what you're experiencing, and the more you meld yourself and sync with that, the more your life becomes timeless. Midlife is the time to let go of an over-dominant ego and to contemplate the deeper significance of human existence. Carl Jung. So that's why this is titled, this phase is the phase of contemplation. And really the advancement of my deepening of my experience with whatever sort of meditation tools that I have developed over time. And everybody's got different tools. Some people it's best to do a Zen meditation sitting on a pillow. Other people it's meditation in action and working on yourself here in this world. But as you advance through that period of midlife, things start to become clear. You begin to accept your place, where you're at. And having less years ahead of you than behind of you really sobers you up spiritually. You start to see the importance of practical spirituality. Practically, your relationship to the universe shifts. Your relationship to nature shifts. Your relationship to the people important to you shifts. Things become more precious. People don't need to be saved or rescued. People need knowledge of their own power and how to access it. Getting in touch with that place in yourself is the key to all of it. It's the key to balance and peace and health. It's the balance of where the answers are of the mystery of my life. Walt Whitman, every hour of every day is an unspeakably perfect miracle. The fact that we are alive at all, that there is a manifestation that looks like this, populated with stuff, interaction with people, love, enterprise, business, healing, the universe, Earth. It's a mind blower that this even exists and we're experiencing it as a mind blow. That's what he's talking about. Realization that I exist in a place with things is just beyond comprehension. You've got all kinds of scientific, explanations for everything, but the fact that it's here and you're experiencing it is just beyond everything. Mature adulthood, 50 to 80. They call that the phase of benevolence. When you're getting into, so I'm in this zone. I'm 76. So I'm sort of into the serious business of less years ahead of me than I've had behind. But one thing I've noticed is that my appreciation of the preciousness of every moment has expanded. The things that are truly important in life just stand right out in your face. It's who you love and who loves you back. It's not so much the things you've got, although I truly and deeply appreciate the fact that I've got cool stuff and great things and wonderful books and a nice house and a cool car and a wonderful business that is, helping people. I have a son who's healthy and who loves me, and I love him back. So, I'm in a deep place of happiness and appreciation and thankfulness and gratitude. As I look back upon my life and I contemplate what I've been through and the sort of things that I've, quote, achieved, things that have moved through me that I've surrendered to and have accomplished great things, my sort of legacy, I realized that as an older man, there's a place of wisdom here that has accumulated because of experience. I'm not so easily hoodwinked by flashy entrepreneurs with a quick fix or a quick buck. Or a newfangled this or that, when I'm going, I saw that 50 years ago. I did that 50 years ago. And now you're just, quote, discovering it. I mean, it's sort of laughable. So for me, it's, I feel like to balance the books, I need to pay it forward now. I need to give something. I need to share what's happened to me. And whether I like it or not, my particular story in life has left me as a wise old man. I know things that other people don't know. And it's an interesting thing to come to terms with, but age is part of that. I've seen a lot of water go under the bridge. I've had more, really an unimaginably rich life of experiences that most people just have their mouth hanging open. That's why I'm writing this memoir. Even I think it's mind-blowing, the things that have happened to me, the people I've met, the masters, most people are lucky to meet one master in their life. I've had like more than a half a dozen very powerful people that have influenced me deeply, or more. It's really a great blessing, and I can't just be the depository of that blessing without sharing that out and helping who I can. So it's sort of where this concept of benevolence comes from. You allow a lot of things to pass because you've seen it all. You're not so much affected by the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, so to speak. All things will pass. Things come, things go. And when all of that is done, you're still you and everybody else is still them. life moves on. As long as you've got a focus and a plan and a place to go and a thing to accomplish, that is your life. It's chop wood, carry water. It's pretty crazy to look in the mirror and see gray hair. I do understand that what the hell happened to me? You know, I sort of have become my own favorite haiku poem from when I was in my 20s. The poem is, I'm stopped suddenly by an old gray man, staring at me out of my deep mirror. Catch a glimpse of yourself in a storefront window, catch your reflection, and you don't recognize yourself at first. Oh, shit, who's that? It's an old man there. It's weird being the same age as old people. There was another one. I couldn't find it. I wanted to post it here. It was Kurt Vonnegut. It's going, there's no more terrifying moment than to realize that the idiots you went to high school with are now running the country. But this is a period, you know, where you're an established adult, a mature adulthood. From 50 years on, your life starts to center itself around family and work. You may get into volunteering, some kind of philanthropy or a sort of mentorship. In the old days, in the true flowering, this would be that age, the age when you give back, the age when you take young people under your wing, you start teaching them the ropes. You would be an elder now. For me, 76, I'm an elder. I would be an elder in my community. I would be a shaman, probably, because I'm a weird guy and do all this crazy stuff. And I'm a healer, so I'd have a special standing in the community. I reach an age when if someone tells me to wear socks, I don't have to. For me, it was looking in the mirror and realizing, wow, I've got gray hair now, I'm old. I don't have to be polite anymore. I don't have to put up with people's shit anymore. I can fire people out of my space. I can be selective in orchestrating what I experience in my life. I don't have to put up with stuff anymore. I've got a good excuse. I'm an old guy with white hair, right? I can be a grumpy old man if I have to get you out of my life and populate my life with the people who give me juice and that I can help. You become a wizard. You become a sage, whether you want to or not. Your life experiences have placed you here. If you combine that with a heavy dose of self-awareness, because you've been working on yourself your whole life, then you are truly a sage, a wise one, a shaman. As you get older, three things happen. The first is your memory goes, and I can't remember the other two. This is the period that you move into. Constantly having an eye on the big picture, no matter what's happening to you. Aging is an extraordinary process where you become the person you always should have been. Question of, if I could teleport myself back to when I was like 14, What would I tell myself? How would I live it differently? What would I do? My present level of understanding and perspective, how would I reorder my life? uh, becomes a period of accelerating your contact with the cosmos, opening yourself up to deeper levels of truth and wisdom that reside in all of us. It's a time of giving back. In 4 years, I'll be 80. That's a mind blower to even contemplate. In my present mode, it is the time for me to give, to share. In the ancient traditions, when the elders reached a certain age, they began to tell their story to the community. They began to empty themselves of all that had happened to them and all the wisdom to share all of it, the story. It's the purpose for the memoirs. I am emptying my story. And I am sharing what has happened to me and what I know and what I have experienced to the general world. Because I know that nobody has experienced all the things that I've experienced, because I'm me and you're you. But I also know that I'm older and I've had an extraordinary life and have experienced things that are so over the top that even I can't believe it. And so I'm paying that forward. The universe is now in debt to me, or I'm paying off all the chits that have, all the things that I ever did that I owe the universe for. I'm paying it all off. So the slate is clean for me and my descendants and my son. Getting old is like climbing a mountain. You get a little out of breath, but the view is much better. Ingrid Bergman. Interesting. Your life becomes this all the time. Someplace inside of you, you have this mudra. Superimposed on top of this mudra is all the tapestry of the things happening to you in your ordinary life. But a part of you has grown an ability to be present with all of it. A part of you is in full lotus position, floating 3 feet up and behind you, observing it all, watching the flower unfold. Do not grow old, no matter how long you live. Never cease to stand like curious children before the great mystery into which we were born. That original picture of the little child with that face, vitality, wonder, amazement. As you get older, it all comes back. The world is an amazing place. The majesty of just taking a breath is mind-blowing. You begin to appreciate the ability to pee and poop. Doing the dishes becomes a sacred thing. It's not something that you race in, do, and come back to whatever you were doing before. Now everything is in its own self has meaning. Your perspective is different, shifted. You realize that only the body ages. That's the first thing. Spirit is the same as the spirit of the little baby I was. I'm still the same person I was in the womb. I just have an older body, and been through a whole bunch of different experiences and been beat up and loved and had psychedelic experiences and seen God and all the rest. Superimposed on top of that infant spirit that's still there. My perspective includes all of it. It's all of that journey is superimposed on my present level of awareness of my life. It never goes away. All the things that have happened, all the repetitions I see happening in other people's lives, I know what it means. I know where they're at. I know it's about to happen. I know what has happened in the past. Until you're sort of there. This is Satchidananda, one of the great gurus from India from the 60s. He was present opening Woodstock up on the stage doing a prayer for everyone. When I lived in Virginia, and I had my office in Northwest Virginia, town called Winchester, biggest holistic health center in Virginia. And my parents and my sister still lived in Southern Virginia in Farmville. It was a 3-hour car trip to go down and visit them, which I would do periodically. It would take me through Charlottesville, which is an incredibly beautiful city with the University of Virginia, buildings that were designed by Thomas Jefferson. It's like this, steeped in tradition, original 13 colonies, gorgeous, beautiful. And one of those trips, I passed through Charlottesville, and that stretch from Charlottesville down to Farmville is about an hour and a half. Small little 2-lane country roads, weaving around through the beautiful Virginia countryside. And as I'm driving along, just, listen to music and stuff, there's a little green sign, which is the county road sign, County Road 256. And underneath it was a little sign that had been tacked there that said Yogaville. And was like, whoa, wait a second. As I stopped my car, pulled over the side of the road, backed up, Yogaville. What the hell is Yogaville? So I turned off on that road. Now we're on a very narrow road that's weaving around through the trees and the forest and blah. I'm going down the hill, going on, 2, 3, 4 miles. All of a sudden, here's Yogaville with a big arch which says Yogaville, and there's these, big, it's an ashram. It's this guy's ashram, Satchidananda's ashram. So I pull in, there's a little store with, stuff from India, and some very lovely and beautiful people there that I meet and have conversations with. And they're saying, why don't you stay for lunch? We're about to have lunch, so why don't you come and have lunch with us? So I thought, okay. So there's big sort of tables set out with benches and food all over the place and people all over the place. And I sit down and start, and then Satchidananda himself shows up and sits 8 feet from me and gives a talk, and we eat. He gives another talk. And then afterwards, everybody just gets up and starts milling around, and he's there, milling around through people. So I get to meet this guy. So from a sort of an esoteric, metaphorical standpoint, God divided into an infinite number of finite pieces, and each piece solidified into a form, into a personality. An infinite number of shards of the personality of the Godhead, all made manifest and then forget who they are. and enter into the greatest heroic journey of all time to find out the true nature of your soul, which is we're all one. But that means that if you want to get to know God's personality, meet people. Meet as many people as you possibly can and find out who they are and what their story is, because that's talking to another shard of the personality of God. And some of those shards are brighter than others. And this is a very bright shard. Meeting a master of spiritual attainment, whoever they are, is a remarkable experience. And it's a remarkable experience in the metaphor of you in your collective unconscious meeting the important shards of your own deep mind made manifest in this external world. And it has been my great blessing to have met some of the brightest shards in my own collective unconscious mind manifested in the external world and got to meet them. And those experiences change you forever. You're not the same afterwards. Something energetic takes place just being in the presence. There's a magnetization of electromagnetic field or something. There's a spiritual field that you're in the presence of, and it rings you like a bell. It's like sympathetic resonance or something happens. It shifts you. But just another one of those experiences like Yogaville, what's that? And all the masters and the attained one and the enlightened ones that populate your own deep collective unconscious mind. When you break through to the higher levels of personal meditative awareness, you break through into the arena where your own unconscious mind is populated with this level of figures that you can meet. When you begin to meet them, they begin to manifest in the external world, and you start having these amazing encounters with enlightened people in this world that get projected from the collective unconscious mind. An infinite number of stories in all the parallel universes in all of time and space. A dream in the mind of God that we can push the envelope of getting in touch with and helping to give birth to manifesting in this world as an external projection of our collective unconscious mind. That's where we're going right now. So relax into where this soundtrack is going to take you, populated by the enlightened ones within. Open yourself to that possibility. Here we go. Oh, thank you, everyone. Yeah. Sort of hard to believe that was 14 minutes. I brought this down. Get my hand in here. I would put it on. I mean, it's a full head mask. Pretty cool when you got it on. I tried to put it on, but I think my head has become too thick and too big with all these heavy-duty cosmic thoughts. I mean, it's grown my... But, all right? It's all right. Anyway, I'm sort of growing into this just like I'm growing into my haiku poem. I tried to grow my beard a bit, but I had such a bad hair day that I couldn't stand it, and I cut it off. But thank you all for being here and for, you know, putting up with my rantings and ravings as an old man who's starting to lose his mind. Good thing, right? Spent my whole life trying to lose this mind. So thank you all very much, and I will see you next week. I'll keep the live stream going for a little while, then we'll switch it over to the Discord channel. Thank you all very much. I'll see you next week.